The night Serena Okafor turned 29, she celebrated with a gas station muffin and a plastic fork she'd borrowed from the break room. Not borrowed. Taken. There was a difference, she told herself. Borrowed implied you'd give it back. She'd propped it against the little sink in the hotel's staff bathroom on the 3rd floor, the one that always smelled like bleach and someone else's lavender shampoo, and she'd pressed a single birthday candle into the top of the muffin. Blueberry, which wasn't her favorite. But it was the last one left in the spinning rack by the register at the Petro-Canada on Wellington Street. She'd bought it on her walk to work that afternoon, when the January wind was doing what January wind in Ottawa does, which is to say it was trying to remove her face from the front of her head. She lit the candle with the lighter she kept in her coat pocket for guests who sometimes needed one and sometimes didn't know they did. She watched the flame for exactly 3 seconds. Then she blew it out because setting off the smoke detector in the staff bathroom would have been, historically speaking, a very Serena thing to do, and she was trying to have a better year. She ate half the muffin standing up. It was dry. She ate the other half anyway. Then she tucked the candle back into her pocket, washed her hands, put on her smile. The real one, not the customer service one, though she'd been told by more than one manager they looked identical, and went back out to the front desk of the Château Sinclair. The Château Sinclair was not technically a chateau. It was a 15-story hotel in the Byward Market neighborhood that had been built in 1987, renovated in 2004, and slightly unrenovated by time since then. The lobby had dark wood paneling and a chandelier that had been cleaned approximately once since Serena started working there 3 years ago. The carpets in the hallways were burgundy and gold, and patterned in a way that seemed designed to prevent guests from ever finding their rooms again. Serena loved it, which she knew said something about her that she was still working out. She'd started as a housekeeper, then she'd moved to laundry. Then front desk, which was where she'd been for the last year and a half, which meant she knew the names of every regular, the preferred room of the man from Montreal who always wanted to be on a high floor but not the highest. And the exact moment the espresso machine in the lobby cafe started making a sound like a cat that had seen something concerning. Tonight was a Thursday in January, which meant the hotel was 3/4 full and the bar was half empty, and the lobby was quiet except for the elevator and the ambient hum of the heating system working very hard to keep up with the fact that it was -22 outside. Serena's co-worker, a 22-year-old named Kwame, who was working his way through an accounting degree and had the kind of face that looked permanently startled by good news, was covering the desk when she came back. "You look the same," he said. "I'm a year older. You really don't look it. That's because I've been moisturizing since I was 12. My mom's thing." She stepped behind the desk and picked up the booking sheet. "Anything?" Room 94 called about the thermostat again. "And there's a late arrival coming in." He slid her the printout. "Reservation under Whitmore. Oh wait, no, under Ashford. Patrick Whitmore Ashford, which is a lot of name." Serena looked at the printout. Suite 1201. Extended corporate rate. Check-in time, 11:45 p.m. She looked at the clock above the 11:38 p.m. Ashford, she said. She knew that name. She knew it the way people in Ottawa knew it. From the real estate section of the Citizen. From the business news on CBC. From the sign on the building downtown that said Ace Ford Group in the kind of letters that cost more per letter than Serena made in a month. The Ashford Group? His assistant made the booking, Kwame said, already pulling on his coat. "I'm off. Happy birthday, you remembered. Your mom texted me." Serena stared at him. "My mother has your number?" "She has everyone's number," he said, which was true, and disappeared through the staff door before she could ask anything else. She was still thinking about that when the front doors opened and Patrick Whitmore Ashford walked into the Château Sinclair. He was not what she expected. She didn't know what she expected. Someone in a suit probably, someone with the kind of posture that said, "I own things and want you to know it." But the man who came through the door was wearing a dark winter coat that looked expensive but also slightly defeated, like it had been through a very long day and hadn't recovered. His hair was the kind of dark that was just beginning to negotiate with gray. He had his phone in one hand and a carry-on bag in the other, and he was moving with the controlled energy of someone who was extremely tired and not planning to show it. He looked up from his phone when he reached the desk. He had very direct eyes. The kind that didn't look at you so much as take an inventory. "Patrick Ashford," he said. "Reservation." "Of course." Serena's fingers moved over the keyboard. "We have you in suite 1201, king bed, city view. Can I see a piece of ID?" He handed her his passport without being asked, which meant he'd done this before. She processed the check-in efficiently, printed the key cards, slid them across the desk in the little paper sleeve. "Breakfast is served in the Laurier room from 6 to 10, she said. "The bar closes at 1, the elevator to your floor." "I know where the elevator is," he said. Not unkindly, just matter of fact. "Of course," she smiled, the professional one. "Is there anything else you need tonight?" He looked at her for a moment. "Just a moment." "No," he said, "thank you." He picked up his bag and walked to the elevator, and that was that. Serena watched the elevator doors close, and then she turned back to her desk and finished her shift and went home at 7 in the morning on the number 2 bus, and the blueberry muffin candle fell out of her coat pocket at some point between the hotel and her apartment on Somerset Street, and she decided to consider it an offering to the city. She was 29. It was fine. Everything was fine. The thing about working nights in a hotel is that you become familiar with a certain kind of loneliness that isn't quite lonely. The city outside is dark and the guests are sleeping and you are the only person awake in a building full of people. And there is something almost companionable about that, like being the lighthouse keeper who waves at the ships. Serena had worked nights for 3 years. She had learned to sleep during the day with blackout curtains and earplugs and the white noise app she'd downloaded after her. Upstairs neighbor adopted a puppy named something she could never quite hear but suspected was either Biscuit or Brendan. She had learned that 3 a.m. conversations at the front desk could go anywhere. Grief, gossip, the logistics of cross-country travel. Once a 40-minute discussion about the migratory patterns of snow geese with a retired biology teacher from Fredericton who couldn't sleep. She had also learned in the 3 years she'd worked at the Château Sinclair that Patrick Whitmore Ashford stayed there every 6 weeks, always in suite 1201, always arriving late, always checking out before she came back on shift. She'd pieced this together from the booking records, which was not, she told herself, the same as paying particular attention to one specific guest. It was just professional awareness. Due diligence. The second time he came in, he asked about parking. The third time, he asked if the restaurant could do room service past 10. The fourth time, this was March now, and the snow had been going for so long that Serena had stopped believing it would ever stop. He came in at midnight, and the front desk phone was ringing, and the elevator was making a grinding sound it wasn't supposed to make, and a guest had left a damp umbrella on the floor, right where someone could slip on it. And Serena was handling all 3 of these things at once when Patrick Ashford walked through the door. He stood at the desk for a moment, watching her navigate the chaos. Then he reached over and picked up the umbrella and set it against the wall where it wouldn't be a hazard. Just like that, without comment, she looked at him. He looked at her. "Room key's ready," she said. "I figured," he said. She handed it to him. Their fingers didn't touch. That would have been a cliché in real life. In Serena's experience was more subtle than clichés, which was both its greatest virtue and its most consistent disappointment. "Thank you," he said. "For the umbrella thing, you picked it up. You were going to get to it. I was getting to a lot of things." Something moved at the corner of his mouth, not quite a smile, an acknowledgement of the possibility of a smile. "Good night," he said. "Good night, Mr. Ashford." He went to the elevator. She went back to the phone. The snow kept coming. The 5th time he came in was in April, when the city had finally admitted that spring was an option, and Serena had started her shift in a terrible mood because the 2 bus had been delayed 40 minutes, and she'd missed her check-in with her younger sister Amara, who was studying in Vancouver and who had the infuriating habit of only being free at inconvenient times. In the small room behind the front desk, the one they used for printing and occasionally, unofficially, for the kind of 5-minute cry that the job sometimes required, trying to fix a paper jam in the printer when she heard the front door. She came out, hands slightly inky, professional smile already in place. Patrick Ashford was at the desk. He looked at her hands. "Paper jam," he said. "The printer has strong feelings about cardstock. Doesn't everyone?" She processed his check-in. He took his key card. He didn't move toward the elevator. "You were here for your birthday," he said. It wasn't a question exactly, but it wasn't not one either. Serena looked up. "I beg your pardon?" "January. I came in late. You had," he paused. "You had something in your coat pocket. A candle." She stared at him. "You noticed that?" It was an unusual thing to notice someone not mentioning. The ink on her fingers was starting to dry. She was aware suddenly that she was in her work uniform, which was a blazer the color of a government document and a name tag that said Serena, and that she'd been wearing for approximately 8 hours. "It was my birthday," she said. "The candle was. It's a long story. You were working on your birthday. Night shifts don't take birthdays off." Something in his expression shifted. Not pity. She'd have hated pity. Something more like recognition, the way you look at something that matches a thing you already knew. No, he said. They don't. He went to the elevator. She fixed the paper jam. The cardstock won. The sixth time he came in June, he asked her name. Your name tag says Serena, he said. Is there a last name? Okafor, she said. Patrick Ashford, he said, as though she didn't already know. As though they hadn't been doing this for 6 months. I know, she said. I know you know, he said. I just thought we might as well be official about it. She laughed. She hadn't meant to. It came out before she could make the professional decision about it. He looked pleased in a contained way, like a man who had just confirmed something he'd suspected but hadn't wanted to assume. Have a good night, Serena Okafor, he said. Have a good stay, Patrick Ashford, she said. And that was the beginning of the thing that neither of them named for a very long time. What it looked like from the outside. And Kwame provided this perspective with great enthusiasm every time Patrick Ashford came in. Was two people who talked at a hotel front desk in the way that hotel guests and hotel employees are not supposed to talk, which is to say like they knew each other. What it felt like from the inside for Serena was more complicated. She was not a person who made things complicated. She had spent most of her adult life making things as straightforward as possible, which was what you did when you were the oldest of 4 children. And your father had died when you were 17, and you'd learned early that sentimentality was a luxury, and practicality was a necessity. But Patrick Ashford sat down in the chair across from her desk at 2 a.m. one night in July when the hotel was nearly empty, and the city outside was still and warm, and he said, "Tell me something about Ottawa I don't know," and Serena, who had lived in this city her whole life and knew it the way you know a person you've grown up with, said, "There's a wooden door in the Rideau Street Mall that used to be the front door of a church that burned down in 1903, and they kept the door and built the mall around it, and most people walk past it every day and don't know what they're looking at." He looked at her for a long moment. "You know things like that," he said. "I know things like that. Why? Because I like knowing where things came from," she said. "I like knowing the story that's underneath the thing you can see." He nodded. He had that way of listening that made you feel like what you were saying was being actually heard, not just received. "What's the story underneath this hotel?" he asked. "The original owner built it for his wife," she said. "She'd always wanted to live somewhere grand. She died before it opened. He came to the opening night and sat in the lobby by himself for 2 hours and then left and never came back." Patrick looked at the lobby, the chandelier, the burgundy carpet, the dark wood. "That's very sad," he said. "It's also very Ottawa," she said. "We build things for the people we've lost and then we maintain them forever out of stubbornness." He laughed. She'd learned by now that his laugh was quiet, like it had been trained not to take up too much space. She was still deciding how she felt about that. "What about you?" she asked. "Tell me something about." She stopped. She didn't know where he lived. She'd never asked. "Tell me something I don't." Moment. The heating system hummed. "I've been doing this for 15 years, he said. "The company. The acquisitions, the meetings, the hotels. Every 6 weeks in this city." He looked at his hands. "I've been in this lobby 6 times this year, and it's the only where I talked to someone who wasn't about something." Serena looked at him. "About something. A deal. A number. An agenda." He glanced up. "You never want anything from me. You're a hotel guest," she said. "I want you to sleep well and leave a good review. That's not what I mean." She knew what he meant. She'd known for a while. She was just being careful, the way she'd learned to be careful. The way you are when you are 29 and you work nights and you have a mother with everyone's phone number and 3 younger siblings who are watching everything you do as evidence of what is possible. "I know," she said quietly. The lobby was very still. "I leave at 7 on Sunday," he said. "I know that too. I'm back in September." She nodded. She didn't say anything. Sometimes the most important conversations have the most careful pauses. He stood up. He picked up his key card from where he'd set it on the desk. "Good night, Serena Okafor," he said. "Good night, Patrick Ashford," she said. And she watched him walk to the elevator, and she stayed at her desk, and she thought about the wooden door in the Rideau Street Mall and the original owner sitting alone in his lobby, and all the things people build for the future, and all the things the future does with them. September came. He came back. He came back, and this time there was a woman with him. Serena knew in the first 3 seconds, not from the way they stood, because they stood apart, not from the way they spoke, because he spoke to Serena, and the woman looked at her phone, but from the particular quality of tension in the lobby that arrived with people who are performing normalcy at each other. The woman was Constance Mercer. Patrick introduced her by name in a way that told Serena nothing and everything. Long dark hair and the kind of confident stillness that comes from being very sure of your own value. She looked around the lobby with the faint expression of someone who was comparing it unfavorably to somewhere else. Suite 1201 and an adjoining room, Serena said. Her voice was exactly the same as it always was. She was proud of that. The junior suite next door, Patrick said. He did not look at Constance when he said it. Serena processed the booking. She handed over the key cards. She smiled. Breakfast from 6 to 10, she said. Bar closes at 1. I know, Patrick said. And then quietly, only for her, I know the routine. She didn't look at him. She looked at the computer screen. Enjoy your stay, she said. They went to the elevator. Serena watched the doors close. Then she picked up her pen and wrote a note in the booking log, the small additions she always made for herself. Arrived 11:52, guest in good spirits, adjoining room requested. She did not write. He looked at me the way you look at something you've made a decision about. And the decision didn't look like the one I would have wanted. She was a professional. Some things you keep in the margins. She found out from Kwame, who found out from the girl who did online check-ins, who found out from the corporate account notes. Constance Mercer was a senior partner at Ashford Group. She'd joined the company the previous year. She and Patrick had been together for 5 months. Are you okay? Kwame asked, with the directness of someone too young to know that the kind thing is sometimes to pretend you haven't noticed. I'm fine, Serena said. He's a guest. He's a guest who sits at the desk and talks to you for 2 hours about the history of Ottawa's plumbing systems. I find the history of Ottawa's plumbing systems interesting. Serena, Quam. She looked at him. I'm fine. She was mostly fine. The part of her that was not fine was very small, and she kept it in the same place she kept the birthday candle story and the memory of her father's voice and the reason she'd never moved out of the city, even when her sister said she should. Somewhere interior, somewhere managed. Somewhere that could be looked at without being looked at too long. Patrick came to the desk alone the second night of that stay, around 1 in the morning. The bar had just closed. He had a glass of water. I need to explain something, he said. You don't, Serena said. I think guest, she said. Your personal life is your personal life. We talk about the city, we talk about the hotel. That's what it is. He looked at her, that inventory look. Is that what it is? He said. It was not a question. She didn't answer. She adjusted the stapler on the desk, which did not need adjusting. Constance and I stopped. It's not what I want. It's what happened while I was figuring out what I wanted. Patrick, I'm trying to be honest. I know. She kept her voice very level. I know you are. But I think you should go figure it out somewhere that isn't here, and then you can come back and we can talk about it or not talk about it. He looked at her for a long time. Okay, he said. He picked up his glass of water. Okay. He went to the elevator. She sat at the desk and breathed carefully and thought about all the things she was not saying, and decided that not saying them was the right call, and believed it, mostly. He came back in November, alone. He walked in and she was at the desk and she looked up and he said, I ended things with Constance in October. Hello to you too, she said. Hello, he said. I ended things with Constance in October. I heard you. I wanted you to know. She looked at him. She had worked in this hotel for 3 years, and she had spent those years being careful and practical and patient, and she thought about the wooden door and the original owner and the things people build while they're waiting to know what they're building. Do you want your key card? She said. Yes, he said. But I also want to take you to breakfast tomorrow morning. If you're getting off at 7, I usually get off at 7. I usually check out at 7. That's a coincidence, she said. It's not a coincidence, he said. It's planning. She looked at him. He looked back. The chandelier did its thing with the light, which was to make everything look slightly more significant than it was. And maybe that was why someone had cleaned it once, just the once, to give it a fighting chance. There's a place on Dalhousie, she said. They open at 6:30. The eggs are good and the coffee is very strong and they have a table by the window that looks out at the market. That sounds good, he said. It is good, she said. She handed him his key card. He took it. Room 1201, she said. You know the way. I do, he said. He went to the elevator. She finished her shift. She did not allow herself to smile until after the elevator doors had closed, which was, she felt, a reasonable and professional delay. The breakfast was good. The coffee was strong. The table by the window looked out at the Byward Market, which in November was gray and still, and had the quiet quality of a city resting between versions of itself. Patrick was different in the morning. Not better or worse, just different. Less contained. He drank his coffee and he asked her about her family, and she told him about Amara in Vancouver and her brother Jerome, who was training to be a paramedic in Hamilton, and her youngest sister Bethany, who was 15 and already smarter than everyone in the family, including Serena, which Serena considered both a great achievement and a personal affront. He told her about growing up in Winnipeg, which surprised her, because Ashford Group had always seemed like a Toronto thing to her, or maybe a Vancouver thing, a West Coast money thing, and she said so. It started in Winnipeg, he said. Commercial properties first, storage facilities, not glamorous, storage facilities, she said. People always need somewhere to put things, he said. It's remarkably stable, she laughed. That might be the least romantic origin story for a real estate empire I've ever heard. Did you want romantic? I wanted interesting. Storage facilities are interesting. You find everything interesting. Not everything. I find things interesting that have a story underneath them. He looked at her. The morning light was coming through the window, the flat white light of a November morning in Ottawa, and it was not a flattering light, but it was an honest one, and she thought that maybe that was better. What's the story underneath me? He said. It was a vulnerable thing to ask. She appreciated that he asked it anyway. I don't know yet, she said. I'm still reading. He smiled, the real one which she'd seen exactly twice before this and which changed his face considerably. Take your time, he said. The thing about Constance Mercer that Serena learned later, much later, from Patrick himself over dinner in a restaurant on Elgin Street that had been open since 1974 and had not appreciably updated its menu since then, which she found endearing, was that Constance had come to Patrick in September not just as a partner, but as a representative of a problem. A significant part of Ashford Group's board, 3 of the 7 members, had decided over the course of the previous year that Patrick's leadership style was too conservative, too patient, that he was leaving money on the table in ways they found professionally unconscionable. Constance had been, Patrick said at his plate, their preferred solution. Their preferred solution, Serena said. They wanted someone inside, he said. Someone who would soften things, I suppose. Make me more amenable to their proposals. Did they tell her to date you? They didn't have to. He picked up his fork and put it down again. She came to the same conclusion they did independently, I think. We were well-suited on paper. Serena said nothing. She was very good at the kind of silence that let people finish. When I ended things, he said, she went back to them, and they started the process of trying to remove me from my own company. She looked at him. Remove you. Technically, they have the votes. If they bring in the right outside investors, which they've been quietly doing for 3 months, they can restructure the board and reduce my operational authority to the point where the title is meaningless. She put down her glass of water. Patrick, I know, that's your company. I know, you built it, Serena. He looked at her. I know, but I've spent 15 years being the company. I'm not sure that's the same as the company being worth keeping at any cost. She looked at him for a long time. She thought about her father, who had worked for 31 years at a printing company that had let him go in the last year of his life, and had sent a flower arrangement to his funeral that was frankly insulting in size. She thought about what her mother had said at the time, which was, he was more than that job and it's a shame it took this to prove it. What do you want to do? She said. He looked at the 1974 menu, the specials board, the window with the Elgin Street evening going by outside. I want to fight them, he said, but I think I might not win. And he stopped. I've been sitting with the possibility of losing, and it's less terrible than I expected. Less terrible, she said. Because of you, he said simply. Because I came into that hotel and I talked to someone who didn't know about the board and didn't know about the portfolio and wasn't calculating anything. And I remembered what it was like to just be a person. Serena was quiet. The restaurant hummed around them. You have to fight it, she said. I know, I mean it. You built something, and someone is trying to take it through dishonesty and you can't just hand it over. I'm not planning to hand it over. Good. But also, she looked at him. Also, you're right that it's not everything, and you should know that going in. Both things can be true. He reached across the table. He put his hand over hers, which was the first time they'd touched in a year of knowing each other, and it was warm and certain and she did not pull back. Both things can be true, he said. Yes, she said. I'm going to need a good lawyer, he said. And possibly a forensic accountant. I know a very good forensic accountant, she said. She's my cousin. She is extremely aggressive. He laughed, the contained one and then the real one after the other. Of course she is, he said. The next 6 weeks were what Serena would later describe to Amara on a very long phone call that happened on a Sunday afternoon in January, her 30th birthday, which she did not spend working, as the part of the story that would make a very stressful documentary. Patrick hired lawyers. He hired her cousin Fatima, who was indeed extremely aggressive and who called Serena twice to tell her that she understood now why Serena liked this man, because anyone who kept meticulous financial records was a person to be respected. The board moved their timeline up. There were meetings and counter-meetings, and Serena followed none of the details because she was not a financial person. But she watched Patrick's face on the evenings he came to the hotel. Always suite 1201, always late. And now sometimes she would come and sit in the lobby with him at 2 in the morning, and he would tell her the shape of what was happening without all the numbers, and she could read the shape accurately. It was hard, and he was handling it. There was a week in December when she thought he might not win. She could see it, the particular quality of exhaustion in him. The way he looked at the hotel lobby like it was the only place where things made sense. She sat across from him at the desk and she said, "Tell me something about Winnipeg I don't know." He looked at her. "Winnipeg has more Slurpee purchases per capita than any other city in the world," he said, "including cities that are warm. Why? Because Winnipeg doesn't let the cold stop it from doing what it wants to do." She looked at him. "That's a good story." "It is," he said. "It's the most Winnipeg thing I know." She reached across the desk and she put her hand over his, the way he'd done in the restaurant. He looked down at their hands. "You're going to win," she said. "You don't know that." "No," she said, "but I know you." He won. Mostly. The legal outcome, and Fatima explained this to Serena with great enthusiasm over the phone, was not a complete victory, but it was a functional one. 2 of the 3 hostile board members were found to have violated their fiduciary duties in the quiet investor recruitment process. The 3rd negotiated a quiet exit. Constance Mercer resigned in February. Ashford Group remained Patrick's company, restructured slightly but fundamentally intact. He came to the hotel the night it was settled. He came in at midnight and he looked like a man who had just put something down that he'd been carrying for a very long time. He came to the desk. "It's done," he said. "I heard," she said. Fatima had called her 3 times. "Your cousin is terrifying. She's wonderful. She's wonderfully terrifying." He put both hands flat on the desk. He looked at her. "I want to take you somewhere that isn't this hotel. You took me to breakfast. I want to take you somewhere I choose. Somewhere I've been thinking about." "Where?" "There's a place," he said. "On the Spark Street Pedestrian Mall used to be an old bank building. They've turned it into a restaurant. Very good food. Very tall ceilings." "I know that place," she said. "I know you know. Will you come?" She looked at him. The lobby was empty and the chandelier was doing its thing, and outside it was February and the city was doing what Ottawa does in February, which is to hold on with both hands and keep going. "Yes," she said. "Saturday," she said. He smiled. Both smiles, one after the other. He went to the elevator. She sat at her desk for a long moment, very still, thinking about all the slow things that happen between 2 people when they're both being careful, and how all that care sometimes turns into something solid without you ever noticing exactly when it happened. The restaurant on Spark Street had tall ceilings and very good food and a corner table by the window that looked out at the pedestrian mall, empty and white in February, the stone buildings holding themselves against the cold the way Ottawa buildings always did, quietly, durably, without complaint. Patrick brought her flowers. This surprised her. "You brought flowers," she said. "You seem like someone who would appreciate flowers," he said. "I do appreciate flowers," she said. "I'm just surprised you knew." "I've been paying attention," he said. "For about 14 months. She laughed. She let him help her with her coat, which she normally would not have allowed, but he moved so naturally that it seemed rude to refuse. They sat at the corner table. They ordered. The conversation moved the way their conversations always moved, which was easily and in all directions, except this time there was no desk between them and no midnight quiet, and it was just the 2 of them in a restaurant in February with the city outside. He reached across the table at some point, over the dessert, which was a very good butter tart, which was locally specific and exactly correct, and he took her hand, and this time it was forward. It was decided. It was not just warmth. "I've been figuring something out," he said. "Tell me," she said. "I used to think the thing I was building was the company," he said. "And then I thought it was the company and the stability and the reputation. And then I spent 14 months having conversations with you at 2 in the morning about church doors and plumbing history, and what it means to know where things came from, and I think what I'm actually building is—" He stopped. "Patrick, I think I'm building a life," he said. "And I'd like you to be in it if you want." It was not a perfect declaration. It was slightly awkward, and he said it with the focused attention of someone making a presentation to a board, which was honestly endearing. She understood that this was how he was, careful and contained and not given to performances, and she had decided months ago that she valued the reality of him over the performance of something easier. "You should know," she said, "that I have 3 siblings and a mother with everyone's phone number and a cousin who will do a background check without being asked." "Fatima already did," he said. "Of course she did." She tightened her fingers around his. "And I work nights, which means I sleep days, which means the schedule is non-standard. I travel every 6 weeks," he said. "I'm used to non-standard, and I love this city," she said. "I'm not moving. Ottawa is an excellent city," he said in the tone of someone who had not fully believed this before recently. "It is," she said. "It grows on you. You grow on people," he said. "The city is incidental." She smiled. She looked at him across the corner table in the restaurant in the old bank building on the pedestrian mall, and she thought, "This is the story underneath. This is the thing that was there when you didn't know to look for it yet." "Yes," she said. "I'd like to be in it." In March, the night crew at the Château Sinclair celebrated Serena's promotion to assistant manager, which came with a small raise and a slightly nicer blazer in daytime hours, which she was still adjusting to, with a cake from the bakery 2 blocks over. It was a chocolate cake. It was very good. Patrick came to the celebration, which was held in the lobby after hours, which was allowed because Serena now helped make those decisions. He stood slightly to the side in the way of people who are at a party for someone else and are happy about it. Kwam gave a speech that was mainly compliments with occasional detours into accounting metaphors. Her mother came and hugged everyone, including Patrick, whom she had met exactly once before and appeared to have fully adopted. Serena cut the cake. She handed the first piece to Patrick. He looked at it. He looked at her. "Are you allowed to eat the guest's cake now?" she asked. "That was my question first," he said. "You never actually asked it." I was embarrassed. He took the plate. "I was very hungry and it seemed like exactly the right cake, and I didn't think it through. You ate half of it. I left you half. That's a very generous interpretation of what happened." He looked at her over the cake, this man who had built something and almost lost it and chosen when the choice mattered. Something more important than what he'd built, and she thought about all the slow accumulations that make up a life. The conversations and the careful silences and the mornings and the long nights and all the things that look ordinary until you stand at the right angle and see what they actually are. "Happy birthday," he said, even though it wasn't her birthday. "That was in January," she said. "I know," he said. "I'm saying it now." She took the piece of cake next to his on the tray. She ate it standing up, the way she'd eaten the muffin in the bathroom on the 3rd floor 14 months ago. Except this time the lobby was full of people and the chandelier was lit and outside the city was becoming spring again. She did not have a candle. She didn't need one. She already knew what she would have wished for.